Hello. Today I am going to be very open about fear. And not just PCT related fear, but anxiety in general. And I just had coffee, so I'm even more anxious. So I have a family history of anxiety. I have seen and experienced my fair share of anxiety. It's really fun stuff. And I'm not sure if it's just becoming easier as a society to talk about mental health, or if we are actually experiencing more mental health issues as a whole. I do have some theories about this, but that's for another time. So I think it's kind of funny because when I tell people that I'm hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, they immediately start talking about everything that I should be scared of, which I guess is a normal response. I'm sure they're just concerned for me. But there are usually two things that people cite that I should be scared of, and that is bears and murderers. Now, I don't know for sure, but I think I would be a lot more likely to be murdered in a big city where there's lots of people, lots of weirdos, and I don't even know if anyone's ever been murdered on the trail. And then bears, I just don't see as a huge threat because there aren't grizzly bears on the trail, just black bears. Not to diminish black bears, but they're just not as aggressive as grizzlies are. And I also don't mean to say that neither of these things are valid, because they are. They just aren't on my mind as far as things that I'm scared of. So I am going to talk about some fears that I do have and how I am preparing and packing accordingly. Coming in at number freaking 1, and that is lightning. Okay, listen, lightning is absolutely terrifying, and I used to be very naive and not scared of lightning. And then one time we decided while in Switzerland to hike in the Alps with very little water, no food, not look at the weather, and bring nothing. Classic tourist mistake. So of course we ended up getting caught in a massive thunderstorm on a ridge with lightning and hail and the loudest thunder you have ever heard in your life. It shook me to my very soul. I have truly never felt so close to death. It was then that I realized the wrath of Zeus or Thor is just not for me. Several people in my group just accepted death, and I ran thinking that I guess I could outrun the lightning. And later we heard that a outdoor concert had to be evacuated because of tennis ball sized hail. So after some research of what to do when you're actually caught in a thunderstorm, I will first of all be very vigilant about the weather. I will not be on any mountains or hills when a thunderstorm rolls in. And if it does, I'm gonna head back down, hopefully to the cover of many trees and not just one, because lightning is much more likely to hit one tall object. I will avoid open spaces, bodies of water, and if possible, seek a shelter, which probably won't be possible because no, your tent does not count. And in the right circumstances, lightning can cause a wildfire, which brings me to number 2, wildfires. So this is becoming increasingly more common as global warming is changing our climate. Wildfires are no joke, as we have learned in recent years. My city being one of those affected in the 2017 Tubbs fire. Before that fire happened, I seriously did not know that a fire could come and burn down half of a town. I will never forget that night. It was truly one of the weirdest nights of my life. It even had such an eerie feeling before it even started. And by the next morning, I had learned that my friend and my now boyfriend's house had been lost in that fire, and 22 people actually lost their lives. So since that fire, and especially the 2018 campfire in Paradise, I have learned a lot about fire weather, and unfortunately I have experienced a lot of it myself. And by that, I have actually learned a lot about being prepared for a wildfire, what to do, what to look for. So I do feel pretty level-headed in this area, but it is a big concern of mine, especially since I have a later start date, which means wildfires are more likely to be a problem. And also smoke from wildfires is just the worst. And number 3, snow. Blizzards, snow covering the trail, I don't want it. Being from the Bay Area in California, I do not have very much experience with snow. And I think this is what makes me more afraid of it. Thinking of being exposed to snow really scares me, and I am thinking I'm going to take a snow survival class, or just how to hike and be in snow, because definitely not being confident in my experience with snow makes it much worse. I really have no idea what I can and can't handle and what I should be in and not be in. And especially since several people have died in the San Jacintos and San Gabriel Mountains recently, I'm just very concerned about this, especially since the snowpack is apparently going to be quite a lot this year. So I will be doing a lot more research on snow and snow safety. And this is kind of related to being cold from the snow. But number 4 is just exposure. Too hot, too cold, not enough water, too much water. I have had some wicked bad sunburns in my life. If you know me, you know I get them pretty easy. And I'm also quite sensitive to heat. So I think I'm going to bring an umbrella, maybe for the whole trail, but definitely in the beginning to shade myself from the heat and prevent sunburn. I will be wearing sunscreen on my face, but to be honest, I'm not the best at reapplying, especially when my skin is dirty. And also I would need like way too much sunscreen, but I definitely will be bringing some, don't worry. And I will be wearing a sun hoodie, which will also protect me from the sun. I will not be relying on water caches just in case, and I will certainly be carrying a lot of water in the desert. The water amount that I'm carrying will vary depending on notes from the Far Out app, and I will be cameling up at water sources, which means I will be drinking as much water as I can while I'm at the water source. But right now I'm thinking of bringing 2 1-liter smart water bottles, a half-liter smart water bottle for mixed drinks, and then I have 1-liter bladder and another 2-liter bladder, and I'm going to be bringing all of these, so I could potentially have 6 to 7 liters of water on me. And if you don't know, water is really heavy, so I better start working on my squat PR. And number 5, and probably my greatest fear, is just being alone, but especially camping alone, and especially as a solo female. But I do have a friend I've been talking to who is going to be joining me, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we will not be camping alone. Although I would think of myself as very cool if I did. And I have been trying to make myself gear up towards camping alone just so that I can be a little bit mentally prepared. And last but not least is number 6, the Boogey Man. And in a M. Night Shyamalan twist, the Boogey Man is actually me. And by that I mean, it's my thoughts. My thoughts can seriously get out of control if I let them. And the Boogey Man tends to come out at night especially, and very much so if I'm alone. My mind really likes to run these worst case scenarios by me. A lot of the time they're not even relevant and completely irrational. But with all my experience dealing with anxiety, I have come to learn to ignore any thought that starts with what if. I think there's a big difference between being cautious and your thoughts being wildly out of control. And that's how I differentiate just being smart compared to these boogeyman style thoughts. When I'm in that mindset, everything is catastrophic. Getting lost, I'm certainly gonna die. Hearing a noise at camp, it's definitely a serial killer. And I think it's very important to keep these kinds of thoughts in perspective and know how to calm yourself down. And luckily or unluckily for me, I have a lot of experience in this area. So all of these things are certainly something to consider and be prepared for. And that being said, I think it's really important not to let fear control me. And it's important to not let it hold me back. I don't want it to be a huge topic of conversation because I would argue that it's the main topic of conversation with certain people, especially my parents. And I know it's natural for them to worry, but I don't want it to be such a prevalent thing. I'm very smart and level-headed, and you know, when it's my time, it's going to be my time. But I do think that we seem to be obsessed with fear, especially fear-based news and media. As a nation, this seems to be something that we really like to watch, and I don't think it's very healthy. Now, I think I've given the appropriate acknowledgement to some legitimate things, but I think there is something to be said about embracing fear for the sake of adventure. And I know that's cheesy, but I find it to be true for me. It's very motivating. If I were to let fear hold me back, I would not be doing this. When I first started thinking about doing the PCT, I was so paralyzed by fear that even though I talked to a lot of people about doing it, I secretly was thinking, I'm not really gonna do this. And I think that's the difference between my mindset then and my mindset now. I started thinking about exactly what it was that scared me, and I started researching it, and now those fears seem much less daunting to me. And I think if you take it in small bites, think about the things that scare you, research it, and know that it can be done, and it can be done without being terrified. And it makes through hiking seem something that's actually possible, and now here I am, and I'm about to do it. Sometimes the thought of leaving my dog and my family and my boyfriend and everyone I love, it kind of overwhelms me with fear. But the more I embrace that feeling and let go of wanting to control the outcome, everything just sort of happens the way it's supposed to. And I'm not going to let something like fear hold me back. Lately, I have been feeling a little nervous. I think because it's gonna be here sooner than I think. And sometimes I get this intense feeling of like, wait, am I actually going to do this? And I think that's normal for everyone. But since I'm such a pro at dealing with anxiety, I have learned that the best thing to do is just let this feeling wash over me. When I first started dealing with anxiety, I saw myself as like a warrior going to battle over this thing that I hated. And over the years, I have found the best thing to do is just let it be. Do nothing. Be still. I have learned to just let it wash over me like a wave, and it will pass. The thought itself cannot hurt me. It's just a thought. And after it does pass, I start to feel excitement again. So, here's to being adventure-led instead of fear-based. Thank you for watching.